It happened behind closed doors, but the shockwave was immediate. As preparations for Prince William's coronation quietly moved forward, one name was suddenly removed from the planning room: Camilla. No explanation. No compromise. Just a firm intervention led by Princess Anne. What was meant to be a routine planning process instantly became a power struggle that exposed fractures the monarchy desperately tried to keep hidden. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The exclusion landed with a force no one anticipated, because it broke an unspoken rhythm the palace had followed for years. Planning meetings had always been about consensus, about appearing unified even when disagreements simmered beneath the surface. This time, there was no softening language, no quiet negotiation, no attempt to ease the blow. Camilla's name simply vanished from the agenda. Chairs were rearranged. Conversations continued as if nothing had happened, even as tension thickened the air. Senior aides were stunned. Some froze, unsure whether the decision would be reversed within hours. Others immediately understood that this was final. Princess Anne's involvement changed everything. She was not acting as a messenger or mediator. She was acting as authority. Her intervention signaled that this was not about scheduling or protocol, it was about control, about who had the right to shape the future narrative of William's reign. The palace's silence spoke louder than any statement ever could. No clarification was offered, no reassurance issued. That absence of response fueled speculation and unease. If this had been a procedural adjustment, it would have been explained. If it had been temporary, it would have been softened. Instead, the quiet suggested intention. It suggested deliberation. And it suggested that this decision had been waiting for the right moment to be enforced. Early signs pointed to something deeper than a single exclusion. The speed with which the planning continued without Camilla hinted at preparation. This was not improvised. It felt rehearsed, as though lines had already been drawn and permissions already granted. Staff followed orders without question, a clear indication that the authority behind the move was unquestionable. In a palace where hierarchy is everything, obedience confirmed power. Whispers began to circulate almost immediately. Was this about optics? About public sentiment? About legacy? Each theory pointed back to Princess Anne, long regarded as the monarchy's most pragmatic guardian. She was known for acting before problems became scandals, for choosing stability over sentiment. Her decision suggested she believed Camilla's presence in coronation planning posed a risk not to logistics, but to meaning. Foreshadowing crept into every exchange. If Camilla could be removed this decisively, what else was about to change? Who else might find themselves sidelined as William's future solidified? The coronation planning room had become a testing ground, revealing how power would be exercised in the coming era. The clash was not loud, but it was unmistakable, and it signaled that authority was being reasserted in a way the palace had not seen in years. What began as a routine process had transformed into a confrontation without confrontation, a battle waged through omission rather than argument. And in that omission, the monarchy's internal fractures briefly surfaced, raw and unresolved, before being forced back into silence. But to understand why Princess Anne drew such a hard line, we must look at what this coronation truly represents. This coronation isn't just ceremonial, it's symbolic warfare. Prince William's reign represents generational change, moral reset, and a deliberate break from past controversies. Every detail matters. Every voice in the room carries weight, and according to insiders, Princess Anne believed allowing Camilla into the planning process risked contaminating the very message William's coronation was meant to send. From the outset, this coronation was conceived not as a continuation of tradition, but as a recalibration of it. William's future crown is being shaped as a statement of intent, a visible pivot towards stability, restraint, and credibility in an era where public patience for controversy has worn thin. This was never about pageantry alone, it was about meaning. And meaning, in the modern monarchy is fragile. One misjudged symbol can undo years of careful repositioning. At the heart of the tension lies the contrast between William's carefully cultivated image and the unresolved controversies that still trail parts of the institution. Insiders suggest there was growing concern that any association, however indirect, with figures tied to past turmoil could dilute the message of renewal. The coronation planning room became the front line of that anxiety. Decisions were no longer weighed solely on protocol, but on perception. Optics, not tradition, became the governing force. Princess Anne's role in this moment was not ornamental. She has long been regarded as the monarchy's internal compass, a figure who understands both history and consequence. Where others debate tone, she calculates impact. Where others hesitate, she decides. To Anne, the coronation represented a once-in-a-generation opportunity to draw a clear line between what the monarchy had been forced to endure and what it now intended to become. Allowing blurred legacies into that space, she believed, would undermine the clarity William needed. Warnings had circulated quietly for months. Advisors flagged potential backlash. Polling was studied. Public sentiment was tracked with increasing unease. The appetite for unity remained, but only if it came without compromise. Anne, more than anyone, grasped that public goodwill would not survive ambiguity. She understood that the modern audience reads symbolism ruthlessly, and that coronation images would be replayed, dissected, and archived forever. There would be no room for revision. Those early warnings were initially softened, then sidelined, until the moment arrived when they could no longer be ignored. What changed was urgency. As planning intensified, so did the stakes. The closer the crown drew, the more dangerous unresolved narratives became. Anne's intervention reflected a belief that prevention was no longer optional. This was the last moment to protect the message before it was set in stone. The decision reframed the coronation as a statement of separation rather than inclusion. Not a rejection of family, but a prioritization of legacy. Anne's calculation was stark but simple. William's reign must begin without ambiguity. Anything that risked muddying that beginning had to be removed, regardless of personal cost or political discomfort. And no one understood the dangers of blurred legacy more clearly than Princess Anne herself. Princess Anne didn't request. She blocked. According to sources, her words were calm but final. This was not defiance, it was control. A reminder that while Camilla holds a title, Anne holds institutional memory. And when she decided Camilla should not influence William's coronation, it wasn't emotional, it was strategic. Those who know Princess Anne understand the weight of her decisiveness. She is not impulsive, not theatrical, and never reckless with authority. When she acts, it is after years of observation, not moments of irritation. Her reputation inside the monarchy has been built on one unyielding principle: continuity must be protected, even if it costs comfort. That reputation is why her intervention carried immediate force. No one asked for clarification. No one pushed back. The room understood exactly what had just happened. Anne's power does not come from visibility, it comes from memory. She remembers the fractures that nearly broke the institution. She remembers which compromises soothed tensions and which ones made everything worse. Unlike others, she does not confuse titles with trust. Titles can be granted, adjusted, or reframed. Trust, once lost or strained, is far harder to repair. In this moment, Anne's calculation was clear. Camilla's presence in the planning room introduced risk, not reassurance. The distinction between title and trust sat at the heart of the decision. Camilla's position gave her standing, but it did not guarantee influence, especially over an event meant to define William's future rather than defend the past. Anne's authority allowed her to enforce that distinction without debate. Her words did not invite discussion because they were not designed to. They were designed to close a door before it created a problem that could not be contained. Staff compliance was immediate and telling. In a palace known for subtle resistance and quiet maneuvering, The absence of challenge spoke volumes. Schedules were adjusted. Briefings were reissued. The planning continued as though the exclusion had always been part of the process. That level of obedience only follows decisions that are understood to be irreversible. It signaled that Anne's judgment had already been accepted at the highest levels, even if it had not been publicly acknowledged. Foreshadowing hovered over the room as the implications settled. Anne knew this move would not remain contained forever. She understood backlash would come, particularly from Camilla's camp, where the exclusion would be read not as procedure but as humiliation. Yet she moved forward regardless. That choice revealed the depth of her conviction. She was willing to absorb fallout now to prevent catastrophe later. What made the moment unflinching was its precision. There was no public confrontation, no raised voices, no spectacle. Power was exercised quietly, efficiently, and without apology. Anne's intervention reasserted an old truth within the monarchy. When the stakes are highest, authority does not announce itself, it acts. And with that act, the balance inside the palace shifted. Lines were drawn. Influence was recalculated. The coronation planning room became a proving ground for how William's reign would be shaped, and who would be allowed to shape it. Anne did not need to justify her move. The institution's survival, in her view, was justification enough. But removing Camilla from the room didn't happen without consequences. Camilla reportedly learned of the decision after the fact. No meeting, no explanation, just absence. For a woman accustomed to being consulted, included, and deferred to, the exclusion cut deeply. Insiders say the reaction was not loud, but it was unmistakable. And it marked the first time Camilla realized her influence had limits. The expectation of inclusion had become routine, almost automatic. Over time, consultation had felt less like courtesy and more like confirmation of standing. To discover that the planning room had moved on without her was to confront a reality she had not prepared for, that access could be withdrawn without warning, and that silence could be the message. The shock did not erupt into confrontation. It settled inward, heavy and disorienting, as the implications began to form. Emotionally, the impact was sharper, because it was symbolic. This was not a missed meeting, it was a visible absence at the moment the future was being shaped. For someone who understood the language of monarchy, absence spoke volumes. It suggested caution where confidence once lived, and it hinted at a hierarchy quietly being rearranged. The exclusion felt less like oversight and more like a boundary drawn with intention. Privately, frustration surfaced in controlled fragments, questions without answers. Replayed conversations, a search for the moment when certainty had shifted. Publicly, restraint prevailed. There were no statements, no visible signs of dissent. That restraint was strategic, but it also masked a growing unease. Silence protected dignity, yet it could not erase the sense that something fundamental had changed. Fear crept in not as panic, but as awareness. Symbolic rejection carries a particular sting because it cannot be argued away. Titles remain, but relevance can wane. The coronation planning process was never about logistics alone. It was about influence, narrative, and the right to shape what comes next. Being sidelined in that context raised questions Camilla had never been forced to ask before. Internally, the realization of shifting power settled with uncomfortable clarity. Influence, she understood, was no longer assumed. It had to be earned, or it could be withheld. The move signaled that the future monarchy was being constructed with sharper lines, and that old expectations would not necessarily survive the transition. That understanding isolated her in a way proximity never had. Isolation deepened as days passed, and the silence held. Allies hesitated. Reassurance did not come. The absence of correction suggested acceptance of the decision at levels higher than her own. In a palace that thrives on subtle cues, that acceptance was impossible to ignore. It confirmed that this was not a temporary pause, but a recalibration of role. What made the moment emotionally volatile was its restraint. There was no explosion to release the pressure, no confrontation to clarify intent. Everything remained contained, forcing reflection rather than reaction. The knowledge that influence had limits, and that those limits had been enforced without discussion, reshaped how Camilla viewed her place within the unfolding future. And as Camilla absorbed the blow, attention turned to William's role in the decision. Prince William never made a public statement. He didn't need to. Insiders claim his silence spoke volumes. By allowing Princess Anne's decision to stand, William sent a clear signal about the tone of his future reign, and about who would, and would not, shape it. That silence was not hesitation. It was calibration. William has learned that confrontation hardens positions, while restraint lets decisions settle into inevitability. By staying above the immediate conflict, he avoided the spectacle of choosing sides while still endorsing the outcome. In palace language, this is authority exercised without fingerprints. The message was subtle but unmistakable. The decision had his consent, and it would not be revisited. Those close to William describe a leader who understands the cost of public friction. Direct confrontation would have dragged him into a personal dispute he did not need to own. Instead, he trusted Princess Anne's judgment, a trust earned through decades of institutional memory and hard-earned credibility. That trust mattered. It signaled continuity with the past while asserting control over the future. William did not need to explain himself. He needed to be consistent. Strategic distancing from controversy has become a hallmark of his approach. He is acutely aware that every word spoken now will be replayed later as precedent. Silence, when chosen deliberately, preserves flexibility. It allows him to claim unity without compromising clarity. By not intervening, he framed the exclusion as an institutional safeguard rather than a personal slight. That framing protects his reign from being defined by inherited disputes. The decision also reinforced a generational authority shift. William's leadership style contrasts with the louder, more reactive modes of the past. He favors systems over statements, process over posture. Allowing Anne to act placed experience at the forefront while positioning him as the arbiter who values outcomes over optics. It was a signal to aides and allies alike. Influence will be earned through alignment with the future, not through titles tied to the past. Foreshadowing lingered in the aftermath. Those watching closely understood that this was not a one-off moment but a pattern taking shape. William's reign would be disciplined, selective, and unapologetically focused on credibility. Decisions would be made quietly and defended through consistency rather than rhetoric. The Coronation planning room became the first proving ground for that philosophy. As days passed, the absence of reversal confirmed the depth of William's approval. There was no softening language, no private reassurance leaked to rebalance perceptions. The palace moved forward, and the machinery of planning continued without pause. That continuity mattered more than any statement could have. It told everyone involved that the line had been drawn and would be respected. In choosing restraint, William also chose responsibility. He accepted the consequences of the decision without amplifying its drama. That choice revealed confidence that the institution could withstand internal discomfort, and confidence that clarity now would prevent chaos later. It was leadership by design, not by declaration. But inside the palace, not everyone accepted the decision quietly. What followed was not unity but division. Staff whispered. Advisors chose sides. Some feared destabilization, others praised clarity. Princess Anne's move forced everyone to confront an uncomfortable truth. The monarchy was no longer operating as a single voice. Inside the palace, disagreement spread in controlled murmurs rather than open revolt. Corridors that once hummed with routine coordination now carried hesitation. Senior staff weighed their words more carefully, aware that even casual remarks could be interpreted as allegiance. Some believed the decision protected the institution at a critical moment, a necessary incision to prevent deeper damage. Others worried it exposed fault lines that had been carefully concealed for years, risking a narrative of disarray at the very moment unity was meant to be showcased. Fear of public fallout sharpened every internal debate. Advisors tasked with safeguarding reputation questioned whether the exclusion would be seen as strength or cruelty. The calculus was unforgiving. Appear decisive and risk appearing ruthless. Appear conciliatory and risk appearing weak. In that tension, attempts emerged to soften the decision without reversing it. Language was adjusted. Context was hinted at, but never clarified. The goal was to dull the edge without admitting the blade had been drawn. Supporters of Princess Anne's move argued that clarity, even when uncomfortable, was preferable to ambiguity. They believed the monarchy had suffered most when it tried to please everyone and convinced no one. Critics countered that the manner of the exclusion, silent, abrupt, and unyielding, invited speculation and resentment. The disagreement was not merely about Camilla's absence. It was about how power should be exercised in a modern monarchy that claims transparency while relying on discretion. Tension rose in senior circles as these views collided. Meetings became shorter and more guarded. Decisions that once flowed easily now required reassurance and alignment checks. The sense of a shared script dissolved, replaced by parallel conversations that rarely intersected. Each camp believed it was protecting the institution, yet their definitions of protection diverged sharply. That divergence was the most dangerous development of all. Foreshadowing crept in with every unresolved exchange. History suggested that internal disagreement rarely remains internal for long. The palace could manage schedules and statements, but it could not manage human impulse indefinitely. Someone would talk. Someone always does. The question was not if, but when and whose version would reach the outside first. As days passed, the atmosphere grew more brittle. Even those who supported the decision worried about its longevity. A choice that holds under silence can fracture under scrutiny. The lack of a unified explanation meant that each advisor filled the gaps differently, creating multiple narratives that competed for dominance. That competition, left unchecked, threatened to spill beyond the palace walls. What made the moment politically tense was the awareness that this division was unfolding at a pivotal time. Coronation planning is meant to project inevitability and control. Division undermines both. The monarchy could survive disagreement, but it could not afford the appearance of chaos. Every whisper felt like a test of containment, every pause like an invitation to leak. And once whispers escaped the palace, the public reaction was inevitable. When news of Camilla's exclusion reached the public, reaction was swift and unforgiving. Some hailed Princess Anne as a protector of William's future. Others accused the palace of internal cruelty. Social media turned coronation planning into a referendum on loyalty, legitimacy, and power. Within hours, the story escaped the confines of royal reporting and detonated across platforms where nuance rarely survives. Support for Anne surged among those who saw her move as a long overdue assertion of principle, a line drawn to safeguard the next reign from inherited controversy. To them, this was not punishment but prevention, an act of guardianship framed as discipline. Hashtags praising resolve and restraint trended alongside clips dissecting decades of royal tension, as if the public had been waiting for permission to take sides. At the same time, criticism of Camilla hardened into something sharper. Commentators revisited old grievances, reframing the exclusion as evidence that acceptance had always been conditional. Sympathy flickered, then faltered, replaced by arguments that proximity to power does not guarantee permanence. Every past appearance was reinterpreted, every silence scrutinized. The narrative split cleanly, protector versus pariah, duty versus entitlement. There was little middle ground, and the speed of judgment left no room for explanation. William, notably absent from the noise, was framed by many as a decisive leader by default. His restraint became strategy. His silence became endorsement. Supporters cast him as a future king, willing to let hard choices stand without theatrics. Critics argued that the quiet looked calculated, even cold. Either way, the image solidified. A generational pivot marked not by speeches, but by boundaries enforced through others. In the court of public opinion, that distinction mattered. Media amplification intensified the divide. Panels debated not the logistics of planning, but the meaning of exclusion. Headlines sharpened language, pitting family against institution, tradition against reform. Each analysis layered fresh speculation onto an already volatile mix, transforming a planning decision into a proxy battle over the monarchy's direction. The more the palace declined to clarify, the more the story grew legs, fed by experts, insiders, and the irresistible pull of conflict. Public debate expanded beyond personalities to the future itself. Was this the beginning of a streamlined monarchy that values clarity over compromise, or a warning sign of internal fracture dressed up as reform? Polls swung, op-eds multiplied, and the pressure mounted on palace communications to respond without conceding ground. Any statement risked alienating one side while emboldening the other. Silence, once a shield, now functioned as an accelerant. As days passed, the emotional temperature rose rather than cooled. The exclusion was no longer a moment, it was a symbol. For supporters, it proved the institution could self-correct. For detractors, it exposed a capacity for ruthlessness. And hovering over every argument was the same unresolved tension. Power had shifted, publicly and irrevocably, and everyone could feel it. Yet the most unsettling implication still loomed. What does this mean for Camilla going forward? Titles endure, but influence can vanish overnight. Camilla's exclusion from coronation planning raised an unthinkable question. Was this a temporary boundary, or the beginning of a permanent sidelining? For the first time, her position within the future monarchy looked uncertain. What made the moment so haunting was not the absence itself, but what it symbolized. In royal life, exclusion is never accidental. It is a message delivered without ink or announcement, understood instantly by those who know the rules. Camilla's name missing from the planning circle suggested a recalibration of power, one that stripped away the quiet authority she had cultivated over years of proximity. Influence, once assumed, now appeared conditional. And that realization carried weight far heavier than any public title could offset. Those who watched closely began to sense that something fundamental had shifted beneath the surface. Behind closed doors, the loss of access mattered more than optics. Coronation planning is where narratives are shaped long before the world ever sees them. To be absent is to forfeit the ability to guide tone, to soften edges, to steer symbolism. Insiders whispered that Camilla understood this immediately. The exclusion was not merely procedural, it was strategic. It signaled a future in which her counsel might no longer be sought, her presence no longer required. The hierarchy was changing, and it was doing so quietly, efficiently, and without apology. Under William, authority appeared to be consolidating upward and inward. The emerging structure favored clarity over compromise, boundaries over familiarity. Those once central now orbited at a distance. For Camilla, this meant confronting a painful contradiction, holding a crown-adjacent role while feeling increasingly peripheral to its execution. The emotional toll of that contradiction was profound. Power had not been taken from her publicly, but it had been thinned, diluted, rendered fragile. And fragility, in royal terms, is a warning sign. Observers began to speculate about what might come next. If coronation planning was off limits, what other spaces might soon close? Advisory roles? Symbolic appearances? The fear was not of a single decision, but of a pattern forming in silence. Each boundary, once set, makes the next easier to enforce. The monarchy rarely moves abruptly. It prefers gradual realignment, the slow tightening of parameters until the new order feels inevitable. For Camilla, the uncertainty was its own form of punishment, forcing her to navigate a future defined by questions rather than assurances. What unsettled many was how little resistance followed. No public defense, no visible pushback. The machinery moved forward regardless, suggesting that this exclusion had been anticipated, perhaps even accepted, by those who mattered most. That realization deepened the sense that influence, once lost, may not be easily reclaimed. In a system built on continuity, change often announces itself not with noise, but with absence. And as coronation plans advance, one final reality becomes impossible to ignore. This wasn't just about planning meetings, it was about control. Princess Anne's move signaled a monarchy preparing for transition, consolidation, and consequence. As William steps closer to the crown, the lines are being redrawn, and those left outside them may never regain their footing. What unfolded in the wake of that decision carried the unmistakable weight of finality. In royal life, moments like this rarely announce themselves with ceremony. They arrive through access granted or denied, through doors quietly closed. Princess Anne's intervention functioned as a declaration that the future would be curated, not negotiated. Her influence did not come from spectacle, but from a lifetime of stewardship, a reputation for choosing institution over impulse. Those who understood the palace's internal rhythms recognized the signal immediately. The center of gravity had shifted, and it was not shifting back. For William, the coronation is not a celebration of continuity, but a recalibration of authority. It is a deliberate reset, one designed to strip away unresolved controversies and present a disciplined vision of leadership. Anne's role in this moment reveals her as the quiet architect behind the scenes, a kingmaker whose power lies in timing and restraint. By narrowing the circle now, she protected the message later. The monarchy, in her calculus, cannot afford ambiguity when legitimacy is at stake. Stability must be visible, and sentiment must yield. Camilla's uncertain future relevance became the unspoken subtext of every subsequent conversation. Exclusion from planning did more than bruise pride, it altered trajectory. Influence, once exercised through proximity, now faced structural limits. In a system where access defines impact, being kept outside the room is a verdict, not on character, perhaps, but on utility. And utility, in this moment of transition, is measured by alignment with the crown to come, rather than the crown that is. Institutional loyalty tightened its grip as personal ties loosened. Advisors who once balanced competing interests now favored coherence over compromise. The palace's internal logic hardened, the fewer voices shaping the narrative, the fewer fractures to manage. This was not cruelty, it was triage. The monarchy chose endurance over comfort, clarity over accommodation, and in doing so, it accepted the collateral damage as necessary. What makes this ending feel like a beginning is the speed with which the new order asserted itself. There was no prolonged debate, no visible resistance. The machinery moved forward as if the decision had already been absorbed, rehearsed, and resolved. That quiet efficiency suggested foreknowledge, even consensus. It implied that the lines being drawn had been mapped long before the public sensed the shift. And as the crown inches closer to William's head, the battle for influence has already been decided. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.